713 days, because that was the last time that the Southern Steel won a game in netball's ANZ Premiership. But the streak is over. The Steel win for the first time since May 2022, and you can see what that means to the team, to the coaches, and to the fans.
Absolute scenes, as the saying goes, at ILT Stadium Southland. What a time to be a Steel fan and a sports fan. Welcome along to The Roar, a Southland sporting podcast on southlandtribune.com. I'm Nick Jeffrey, alongside Active Southland's Nathan Burden and the Southland Tribune's own Logan Savoury. The immortal words there of Nigel Yalden on Sky Sport commentary duty did a great job of calling what was quite a moment as the Steel broke their duck for, what's that number? 713 days? But yeah, they're sick of hearing that number already. But mission accomplished, and it's as good a place as any to start, because our special guest on the podcast this week will be none other than Steel coach Reinga Bloxham. We were waiting, of course, for a win before we get Curly in, so yes, we've got the opportunity, but rightfully so too. Boy, that, I don't know if you watched it, fellas, but that was some finish, right?
It was one heck of a game, and look, I'm going to be brutally honest here. I'd given up at three-quarter time.
I was in the crowd, and I'd given up.
Was too much. Yeah. So for them to drag it out of the fire like that, to take it the extra time and to win it in extra time, I think it was pretty special. Yeah.
I mean, it takes a bit to dig deep from that. Eight goals down in the and it would have been cruel to lose in extra time. But I mean, great for the Steel faithful too. They showed up and continue to show up in big numbers over what's been a tough couple of years, and that was a good reward for them.
Yeah, I must admit, it was interesting being in the crowd. There was just this strange dynamic, I got to tell you, because I mean, I suppose it's because everyone cares so much and everyone wants it so much, but everyone was on a knife edge, and the moment things started to go a little bit pear-shaped, you did feel the energy get sucked out of the place. And I was thinking at the time, hang on, we need as a crowd to sort of swing in behind it. Now, trust me, when things got rolling in that fourth quarter, man, it was the Stadium Southland of old, no question about that. So it was incredible, and you can hear there on the end of the Sky Sport commentary, I'm glad it came through loud, because it was absolutely deafening towards the end of that. But yeah, you're right, mate. It was an incredible atmosphere, and just an outstanding crowd. Probably because everyone thought, hey, there's a chance here. We can get the Stars, so we want to be there. So I think that was great. Turned up in numbers and got the business done. So yeah, the thing I really like about it's the point you guys have both made. It's not just the fact that they were able to get a win, but it was the manner in which they did it. No reason at all when you've lost 20 in a row and you're down by 8. No reason whatsoever that you should be able to turn that round. But, they got one turnover, then a couple, then another, and all of a sudden Stars tightened right up, obviously. And they did have a chance to win it in regulation, but, go to extra time. And then thankfully, you're right, Sav, it would have been absolutely brutal to lose that. But for them to hold the line and get the job done under pressure in a situation where you're just not used to getting across the line in games was a phenomenal effort. I think
one of the stories, and hopefully Reinga will speak to this later too, is, I mean, we've had this storyline of Shannon Saunders working her way back into the season and how pivotal she is for the team. But they're down 8 goals, and Avari Christie comes on and just absolutely takes that game by the scruff of the neck. And what a performance from a young player. I'm sure she's going to take massive heart out of that game.
Also, Abby Lawson made a couple of really big plays late in that game too, and there's obviously her return's been really helpful coming on off the bench. Sorry.
Yeah, no doubt, and Georgia Heffernan as well too. I thought crucial. Grace Namana. You go through the whole team, obviously. When you get one, we're not going to leave anyone out. But yeah, I think it's just nice how that season has built, isn't it? We talked about that, the building blocks, and it's in no small part Heffernan and Saunders being able to work their way back from injury and obviously play more minutes. So 3/4 out of Shannon Saunders. I'd imagine on her return to play, she may be back to full capacity from next week on. So yeah, I think there's just some really nice signs as to how the injury plague start to the year is starting to build for the Steel.
It felt bigger than a regular season game, and the motion that come following that, and not just the Steel, actually, the Stars too were fairly emotional after dropping a game in extra time. It felt like a really unique regular season game.
There's some very honest comments from Maya Wilson in the post game, wasn't there? She's obviously fed up, and you'd have to think, a team like that who were a beaten finalist last year to give up 8 goals in that last quarter, that'd be an interesting training session. The next one they had.
So we'll spend plenty of time with Reinga about that as the podcast goes on. She's our special guest shortly here on The Raw. Let's talk through some of the other stories of the week. We can put Cormac Buchanan close to the top from a headliner point of view as well too. So the young man, as we know, in round 1 of his FIM JuniorGP World Championship campaign, his first ever podium a couple of weeks ago in Italy. Well, he followed it up with another third place finish in the round over the weekend in Portugal. So 2 podiums from 2. You cannot ask for much more than that.
Yeah, well, it shows a bit of consistency, and it wasn't a one-off that first round, and he qualified, I think, for pole for that race
as well
for the first time. So, yeah, it's a pretty exciting championship ahead, isn't it? When you're backing up, I think he sits 5th in the overall championship, but there's not a lot in it.
Good to see him getting some practice with the old champagne bottle too. He's showing some good form up on the podium, because I've never had a go at that myself. So I don't know if that's something that if it's part of your pre-game prep, that you have to sort of put a bit of time into that, because you don't want to muck it up.
No, you don't. You're under pressure there too, aren't you?
You can quite easily take it eye out if you're not. As well.
I can't understand how he's 5th overall though. You'd think I would have thought he'd be higher than that in the overall standings.
I'm not sure how that works.
Well, we're looking at you.
Yes.
I just looked at the standings. Yeah.
Okay. Well, awesome result, and I think that's the key, right? It was funny when we spoke to him a couple of weeks ago after that first podium as well. He was immediately talking about what was coming next and the need to be consistent about it. He's got a taste now, hasn't he? And as you say, put it on pole. And it was quite a challenging race by the look of his race report out of it as well. So he'd obviously had a crash earlier in the weekend. I think on the Friday he'd binned it, bounced back to put it on pole, and then I think the weather, they were in a wet weather setup, decided to go with slicks, but still had a wet suspension setup, whatever that means, on his bike.
Really well.
What do you think? Yeah,
pretty good.
Just pretty much reading his Facebook post. No, but so that was quite challenging, but he put himself into a position where I think 4 of them got away, and there was a late crash, so he got a bit detached from the leaders, but was in hundreds of seconds of sneaking second as well too. So he's right there, which is just literally awesome to follow. The other story, of course, of the past week that we've been keeping a close eye on is Southland Boys High School and their Sanix World Invitational Rugby Tournament over in Japan. They got themselves through to the semi-finals, but then not the result that they wanted on the Friday, getting beaten by the eventual title winners, actually, and then ultimately dropping the game on the weekend to finish 4th overall. So took the gloss off, I guess, the week to a certain extent, didn't it?
You had a lot of close games through that tournament, put themselves in a position to win, or particularly that semi-final. Seemed to be on the wrong end of the penalty count in that semi-final, which for whatever reason, and that hurt. I think individually there's some really good players in that side. So and as we've talked about, as an experience and setting themselves up for the coming under-school season, it's got to be a great boost. Pretty good pre-season tournament. But some of those Japanese teams, as I said last week, have obviously got a bit of ability about them.
Osaka, who were the team that beat Boys High in the semi-final, so they went there. You were saying the first Japanese winner of the tournament.
Yes, yeah, that's right. So I think a lot were sort of predicting maybe the Australian school or Southland Boys or the English school. So yeah, and some competitive, not just one sort of competitive Japanese team. Obviously, a few at that tournament.
Yeah, they look well drilled. They look fit.
The
team that went on and won it, I thought in that semi against Boys High, whenever they got down into a point scoring position, they had a way to pull the trigger. But you just know with this Boys High team that they keep you in the game. You've got to watch until the last minute, don't you? Yeah. You can't give up on these guys at all.
Yeah, I thought they were going to cross late in that game. They threw plenty at them. The likes of Jimmy Taylor and Mika Muliana, really, I guess, sort of showed what they've got their ability on attack when it opened up right at the end there.
Hey, what are you words in the Southland Tribune this past week about Highlanders lock Mitch Dunshea? Might be getting some interest south of the border from a Stags point of view, huh?
Yeah, I think there's a bit of interest from both sides of the party, and I think as we've talked about before, there's a couple of Highlanders up there working on some of those players, and so he's obviously previously played as provincial rugby for Canterbury, and I was obviously looking at his options, and sounds like the Stags could be an option, which would be a really good boost. I mean, he's 28, played a bit of Super Rugby, so they probably need a wee bit more experience. If you chuck Withy in there as well, just adds a bit. So yeah, we'll see what unfolds there.
It's probably something we've lacked in recent years, is having a consistent sort of locking pairing, isn't it? And with the Stags, they've been able to put together a pretty good line out for all that, but probably just having those, having two big diesels on a regular basis in the second row would be huge for the Stags. So we'll take them.
A couple of club games played during the week, which seems like an age ago because it was duck shooting weekend. So worth mentioning though, Barbarians tipping up Pirates Old Boys, handing them their first loss.
Yeah, I think I mentioned last week, Pirates Old Boys, it was a bit of a gauge because they raced out in the lead, but the quirks of the competition, they hadn't actually played a lot of the so-called top teams. So now they've got a run of the Barbarians and Woodlands and Star. And that was on the back of, understand, a pretty dominant Barbarian scrum with Morgan Mitchell again playing. They got a penalty try and a player in the bin, Pirates Old Boys. So I think that was the key to that victory for the Barbarians.
I was just trying to bring up some of the photos from the other game.
Oh, yeah.
Debbie Fahey took someone. So this was Woodlands up against Marist, and it was just a mud bath. And my goodness, they are. If you follow Debbie Fahey photography on Instagram, they are incredible photos.
Yeah,
and you featured them in the Tribune as well.
Yeah,
too, and they were magic.
And I talked to Richard Jones, the Woodlands coach, after the game, and they raced out to a decent first half lead, and then his quote was something like, it just turned into a bunch of blokes wrestling in a mid-mud at the end of the game. No one knew who was who, and apart from the first fives. But yeah, great photos.
Let's talk about Sharks. So beaten again, so they dropped to 0-8. Actually, you spent quite a bit. You obviously had quite an extensive interview with the coach.
I did,
for the Tribune. What I like about Coach Malloy is that he's very direct. He doesn't. I don't know. His media manager needs to talk to him. He doesn't keep much to himself. Anyway.
No, very honest man.
He was up and down, which was good.
Look, I think there was definitely some improvements against the Giants, but it was a 20 turnovers by the third quarter.
Yeah.
Point. So I don't think it was the Giants beating the Sharks. I think it was.
Yeah.
But I thought, it was particularly in that first quarter, I think Alonzo Burden hit 11 points, I think, in that first quarter, and it just shows he's really important. Obviously, Braden Inga played, but I think it'd probably be unfair to assess him on that performance, given he arrived, pretty much the day of game, or close to it anyway. So
there was something about early in that game, though. Inga threw one to Burton in the corner, who landed a corner three, and I thought, there you go, the old band starting to get back together. That feels a bit more like it.
Yeah. I mean, if you got Alonzo Burton back to full form, same as Braden. Inga, I'm presuming the team at Sharks HQ who are working overtime on a replacement import. But the thing is with this competition, it's so very tight, and there's no real. You look at this weekend, what was it, Bulls and Taranaki years away.
Tough,
pretty tough.
Tough weekend, no question about that. But what following that, and it's kind of one of the reasons, and I think we're pretty open about it, is that there's a 6-game home stretch coming after that. So for 6 weeks, then the Sharks don't leave Invercargill. And whilst then there are no easy beats in there, the reality is that's really the chance to get something going and to put something out on the floor in front of your home crowd that you're happy with. So I think that's been the key around trying to make moves, trying to bring pieces in that will be able to help do that, and or move pieces out. So yeah.
And I guess the thing that we talked about in that piece that you mentioned with Guy is that there's advantages of some of the other teams around player depth. I don't think there's any hiding around that, isn't it? And then when we're in that position when we lost Alonzo Burton and Braden Inga wasn't playing, that probably sort of showed up some of that. Would be so probably need that American import to come in or the import to come in and those other guys firing, because it's really important, obviously, for everyone that they finish well this season, isn't it? Or else it could be a long second half of the season as well.
No question. Absolutely. So, look, a Steel-like final moment would be great. Actually, I'll put that on order. I was sitting up in the crowd, I must admit, at the Steel game going, actually, this would have been good the night before as well. Because I did think to myself, we've got a chance to do the double here. Actually, both teams get off the slide, but not to be, unfortunately. Let's finish on another positive, and this is young James McClay, who is being named in the New Zealand team to contest the World Under-20 Athletics Championships in Peru in August. He's a young man on the up. I know both you guys have spent a bit of time with him, as have I. He's an impressive young man.
Yeah, he's obviously a talent. He's got a pretty good head on his shoulders. He's quite a committed young fella. Obviously making the most out of those opportunities through SBS Bank Academy Southland as well, and from a pretty talented sporting family. Obviously, Uncle Glenn could ride a bike a bit, so he's making every post a winner at the moment.
There was a really tough selection too, because I understand there was 7 guys qualified or hit the qualifying mark to make that World Championships from New Zealand, but they only select 2. So it was it was obviously a fair bit going on to how they get to that final 2. But he was obviously New Zealand mile champion, got that through, and also currently over for the World Secondary Schools cross country
Kenya
championships in Kenya. So big year for him.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Did well at the Australian secondary schools as well. Got on the podium there as well. So yeah.
No, good stuff. One to watch, no question about that. Let's talk ILT Southland Sports Awards before we finish up. Big day coming up on Monday. Finalists announced publicly.
Yeah, pretty exciting. Monday we'll have the finalists across all the categories. So we'll put those out far and wide, and it's I think we've mentioned before that the talent that the judges had to pick from was pretty outstanding this year, and it's a pretty amazing list of finalists. So really excited to get those out into the world.
Yeah, awesome. So that'll give us a good chat next week, no question about that, on The Raw. So there you go. That's a bit of a trip over some of the sporting highlights of the past week. Let's go back to the key one, though, the Southern Steel and that dramatic victory on Saturday over the Stars in extra time. And as special guest this week on The Raw is the coach. Well, Reinga, have you come down from the weekend? Tell us about how you're feeling as you think about it. I suppose you've got to get straight back into work. Have you been able to enjoy it?
Yeah, I did. Saturday night. Good. Sunday, my routine after a game is to always watch the game back, whether we win or lose. So on Saturday night, I did have a couple of quiets just to celebrate that moment, because it's really important that you do that. And with our management team, we just sat there and basked in the W. It's been a while, and then went home, tried to sort of wind myself down. 1:30 in the morning, still awake. So I was really, really hyped, and I actually, to be honest, after the game couldn't remember a lot of the last quarter or the overtime.
Yes.
So it was good to rewatch it. Not so good to rewatch that third quarter, but anyway, good to see what actually did happen and unfold. And then Sunday, just enjoyed the moment. Monday, back into it. Another week, another day.
Must be a different feeling though coming. I mean, it's sort of stating the obvious, isn't it? But is it a different feeling, I guess, coming? What's that feeling like starting this week?
Yeah, look, I think it's a funny thing actually, because we had been waiting so long to just get the W. I think there was a lot of pressure on us, to be honest. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves. Felt like we were building the last couple of weeks. And then afterwards, it's almost like because you've been on a high, you come down even harder. So I think on Monday, that's probably how I felt, and today that's how I feel. I feel quite tired today. I feel quite exhausted by everything, but have just already started thinking about this next game, and actually that win's great, but it's actually what matters is what we do this weekend. So yeah, it's a funny feeling.
I guess there's a lot of talk about the players and the need to get that win just as a bit of confidence and get probably the monkey off the back, so to speak. But what about for you personally? Obviously, going through that period, there was a lot of talk about the players, but as a coach, going through a period where you weren't able to get the success that you wanted.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different things in that. So if I go all the way back to last season, I think when we lost against the Stars in round 3, we got an absolute hammering. We lost by I think it was close to 30-something points. And at that point, I thought, things are not good. Do we know how to play netball? Do I know how to coach? What's going on here? That week, did a lot of soul searching, really questioned myself, was I the right person to be in the job? Should someone else come in? And thought, hang on a minute here, we have been successful in the past, I do know what I'm talking about. Checked in with a few people and just sort of refocused. And I think when you're so successful in other years, you always go into the season thinking, I want to win that big shiny trophy. And last year, when we got to the point where we knew that wasn't even going to be in the question, it was somewhere I'd never been before. So it was quite an interesting process for me to go through. And to be able to refocus, reset your goals, me personally, our management team and then a team, that really helped me refocus and show up every week with the same energy, the same passion that I had, whether I was winning a trophy or not. The trophy just looked different. So it looked like improving your stats, building depth, getting people out on the court, or you doing your job better than you'd done it before. So it just sort of, there was a moment where I thought, this is not great. And then once we sort of got into that season, and we were still losing, but the margins were decreasing, our performances were improving, that was enough to keep me interested and to keep me, turning up and being really passionate and positive, just like I normally would, whether I was fighting for a trophy or not. So it just shifted that sort of performance focus. And then coming into this season, there was a real hunger for me that I didn't want to finish coaching knowing that I'd lost 15 games in a row. I thought, geez, you wouldn't probably pick up another coaching gig, to be fair. So going into this season, looked at what I'd learnt from last season, and for me it was about keeping things really simple and sort of filtering down the information to make sure it was really simplistic and clear going forward, and that's kind of been my focus this season, making sure that every time I go out I'm really coaching to the best of my ability, and I'm making sure that my players have got a really clear understanding of whatever it is we want to achieve heading into the game, whether it's a game plan or whatever, but making sure that that's really clear for them. So having that refocus has been probably key for me, and probably the competitive nature. I just don't like losing, to be fair. I just want to win because it feels so much nicer and you get to sleep a lot easier. Yeah.
That's an unbelievable answer, just so you know.
Oh, thanks.
And it's so really interesting, and you're really honest about that, which I think is great. Having gone through that, and because it's your brand from a coaching point of view that's on the number, whether you like it or not, that's high performance sport, right? So having gone through that and analysed that and had that moment where you have questioned it, you must, not to put words in your mouth or lead you here, but you must come out the other side of that being in a much better place from a coaching point of view, I would think.
Yeah, look, you do, and
just in yourself, I mean.
Oh, absolutely, and to have that win at the weekend, like the players, obviously they could feel the pressure. We had put a lot of pressure on ourselves going into that week about just winning, because when you haven't won for that long, you question whether you actually know how to finish out a game. So our focus, which goes against a lot of things that I stand for, but we spoke about winning more times last week than we had probably in the last 7 or 8 years that I have been coaching. Jason McKenzie led us through a communication session which was all about winning, and us acknowledging that that's what we wanted to do, and us communicating it and sharing it. So there was this massive focus around it, and I think that's what made me quite nervous on game day, that we had talked about it so much. I thought, we have to actually put this into action now. So when it got to the crunch, I was like, when it got to third quarter and we were down by 8, I was like, we've made it quite hard for ourselves to try and get this win. But I'm pleased that we did talk about it, and I'm pleased that we acknowledged it. And the piece of that game, even better than winning for me, was the process that the players went through in the last quarter, knowing we were 8 down and that they had to drag themselves out of that hole, get ourselves to a point where we drew the game. And then afterwards, that extra time, like you can win a game, but to win a game by being 8 down and then going into extra time and nailing your job, I think that's what I was most proud of. Yeah.
And that's the point we made, leading in as well. I mean, you had no right, to be honest, just on the habits that had formed to actually get across the line. So what do you put that down to? What?
Oh, I think, again, just like what I said before, it's that clarity and understanding. Like, this was our game plan. This was your job within the game plan. Know what your job is. Go out there and execute it, and don't, trust that the person beside you is also doing their job really well. So when we went into that overtime huddle at the end of the game, it's quite different from both ends. Like, you saw what they did versus what we did. So I brought the girls in and I said, this is the moment that you have to do your job better than any other minute of the game. Right, what are we going to do? So we just talked about the action. This was going to be the centre pass. This is going to be the defence. If we got the ball, take it to circle edge. Kept it really simple, but made sure that everyone that was on that court understood what their job was, what their role was. Go out and do it. Yeah. You
were really close at the end of last season on winning that game. I think was there one goal in it or something like that. Yeah. But it does feel like there's been a notable improvement this season. What do you put that down to?
Look, I think it's a new team from last year. Like, we have got, 5 or 6 new people, even though they have been in our environment. They are new. And so we had to reset our focus and reset our goals. So that's actually one part of it. The other part of it is just being really clear about what you want to achieve. In the last couple of weeks, apart from that first game, which we were awful, to be fair, against the Tactics, the game against the Mystics, the game against the Pulse, we had 3 quarters of really solid netball in 15 minutes of, actually it wasn't even 15 minutes, about 5 to 7 minutes in each game where we didn't perform and do our role. So we felt that as a team, this team, we had the right mixture, we had the right recipe, we just knew we had to put it out there for longer. So coming out of the Mystics game where we did lose, but we were really competitive and we rattled them, and they're the best team in the competition, we were like, that just gave us the sense of belief, and there was a sniff that we could actually win. We did okay. Then in the Pulse game where we led at halftime, we haven't led at halftime for 713 days or whatever, whatever the stat is.
I knew you'd be sick of that
or
number.
21 games in a row. That was a new position for us to be in. We talked about that at halftime, that we were leading. All we had to do was go out there and score our centre pass, and we didn't. We were awful in the third quarter. We let them back in the game, and then that's ultimately how they won the game. So that when we went back into the change room afterwards, the girls, you could see it written all over their faces, hey, we are actually close. We are going to be doing more than just competing this year. We can win. So that was the conversation that they had, that Kate drove, and they all agreed, yep, this is it. This is our moment. So last weekend they pretty much said, we've got to win this moment. This is it. We've got to do it now. If we don't do it now, we're probably never going to do it.
Yeah, I think it's those compounding errors, isn't it? Like, if you can make a mistake, just don't make another mistake on the back of that, because that's when teams that's when those, I felt like some of the scorelines have blown out. It hasn't actually been a great reflection of what the game's been like.
Yeah, absolutely. And against, like in that Pulse game, obviously, the third quarter for us was not great. There was multiple errors by lots of different people, which normally, like, you might have 1 or 2 people who make a couple of errors, but they were contagious. Tanisha was put on almost like a warning, so it was looking a little bit dodgy, and that sort of threw the balance off as well. So there was a lot of things that happened in that third quarter that took us far too long to react to and to respond to. And again, we addressed it afterwards, and we were like, we just have to take action. Did you do your job in this moment? No. Okay. It's actually quite a simple game, and so when you break it down, it's just like, right, make it really clear, make it really simple, do your job, tick. The rest will take care of itself.
There was obviously some great performances across the court, but you can't not look at that game and think about the impact that Avari had coming on in that final quarter.
Fantastic, wasn't it? The plan that we've always had for Avari was that she would sit behind somebody like Shannon Saunders and learn from the best. Like, Shannon is the best. And unfortunately for Avari, not for Shannon, obviously Shannon wasn't there, so she didn't get that same exposure to watching somebody like Shannon put out what she does, her magic out on court, and then come on. And I think that's been the best thing to watch, is that in the last, this year she's been able to watch Shan, and then by the time she gets on the court, she knows exactly what her role is and what it looks like. She's a very visual learner, so she can see, Shannon's doing that. Okay, I know I can do that. it doesn't look the same because obviously they're not the same people, but she has got huge amounts of talent, huge amounts of speed, and I was super proud of her after that game because she was put into a pressure cooker. We were down by 8. She did her job exceptionally well and then went into overtime and nailed it. So, as a coach, those are the things that I love. That's why I love coaching. I just got so much joy out of that, more out of that than I did, to be fair, out of the win. Yeah.
Are they coach decisions or return to injury decisions around minutes of players? Thinking about Heffernan, Kate and Shannon, obviously, over recent weeks? Or a combination of both?
No, for Shannon, definitely that's led by our physio team and medical team. So she's still on restricted minutes and could be for a wee while, to be fair. So, but again,
as in a hard number.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, pretty much. And to be fair, I probably pushed it a little bit at the weekend. Sometimes I play a little bit dumb in that area. What did you say?
No, got them mixed up.
No, always looking out for the welfare of the player.
25, not 45.
Oh, wrong number. Numbers is never good, good with me. But no, some of it's driven by that. But I think the great thing is you have to go to your bench all the time. You can see what's happening throughout the other ANZ teams. You have one injury to a pinnacle person, like a Grace Weke for the Mystics, Maddie Gordon for the Pulse, and it just actually changes things up quite dramatically. So to be able to blood these young players in by giving them, short bursts like that and them coming off feeling really successful, that's what we want.
So I'm interested, you mentioned Kate Heffernan driving some of the conversation as captain, obviously. I mean, tell us a little bit about the growth you've seen in her over recent years as she's stepped up, not obviously in seniority from a game time point of view and obviously on a national basis, but obviously formally in that captaincy role this season. Yeah,
I think that's the thing that's most pleasing about Kate. Like, again, she's got oodles of talent and speed and, she's, quite a tall mid-quarter. But watching her lead that team and find her style has been really interesting, and each week she's getting more and more confident, putting her own spin on things, and just it's quite funny, like with netball you come in at each quarter and everyone puts a hand in the middle and usually somebody says something inspiring and they pull out a word like finish or fight or drive, and the thing with Kate is we all look at her and we know that sometimes she gets a little bit stuck. She'll probably giggle at me if she hears this. And then she'll go, steal. And we're like, rightio, yeah, that's a good one, Kate. Good job. So quite often she'll go back to things.
You need a fallback option all the time, don't you?
Yeah, things that she knows. But at the weekend, she just pulled out some absolute gold with the things that she was saying. She just mentioned, having belief, doing your job, doing it for each other, all those sorts of things. So when she had those little moments, I was like, go, Kate, that's awesome. And then she's like, what should we say? Steal. Yeah, good one. Yeah. So, watching her grow in that space has been really, a real proud moment for us because she has just about been in this team for as long as I have. Like, she was just a baby when she came in, and she's been elevated really quickly through the ranks, but has accepted the challenges that are thrown to her wholeheartedly. She leads when it comes to doing her homework and analysis. She's really, really onto that sort of stuff, and she's hot on it, and she leads other people in that space, which is great. So she's always looking at little ways of making sure that she's really clear with what she's doing, but that everyone else around her is really clear as well. So that's awesome.
Is there the potential, I guess just building up to that moment to get that win, that it's such a relief and you've got the next assignment to come in? So, and if there is that concern, what's being done to obviously try to redirect the focus towards the next game? Yeah,
there is a little bit of that this week, but I think the important thing is, I suppose for the girls and for me, is that we take that performance and we don't replicate it, because to be fair, it wasn't a great game on our behalf. Like, we had 2 really good quarters in overtime and then the other 2 weren't so great. So I think it's still about us searching for 60 minutes of more consistently doing our own jobs really well. But, we have to acknowledge that, yes, we've won, we've celebrated that fact, but actually we're only going to be as good as the performance we put out there on Saturday.
Has this shooting combination caught you by surprise at all this season?
Not me, obviously. It has caught other people by surprise. I'm such an optimist, and I believe in these girls wholeheartedly. Like when they come in, I always give them the speech about you are here because I've chosen you to be here, and I believe that you're the best person for the job. So it hasn't surprised me at all. I am surprised at the fact that it's probably caught other people off guard. I love the fact that Grace and Amina shot 100% in that game. Like that is stuff that, like, players like Aaliyah Dunn, who are seasoned campaigners, they do things like that. Grace's first time contracted, and she nailed it game 2 against 2 really quality defenders. But it speaks volumes about the work that she's done to get herself to this point. So as soon as she knew she had a contract, she was in the gym training, so that when she came in day 1, she was ahead of where she needed to be. Georgia Heffernan is a player that I've always rated. Like, I just think she's got immense talent. She's got great vision, and she can shoot the lights out. So I just think it's really nice to see her doing well. Like in the past, she's still been growing with her consistency and her performances. Being away with the Ferns just gave her that belief, and it was almost like this tick, yes, I am good enough to do this stuff. So now she's come back in, and she's just leading the way, and she's taking on every opportunity and challenge. So, yeah, probably surprised other people, not surprised me. And I think the great thing is we're different to how other people are playing. So most other teams have got a big tall shooter who holds, and then you have somebody out the front. But these 2 can hold, they can move, they can pass, they can shoot. So it keeps the defence guessing.
And George's confidence, I guess, to shoot from a
Fearless.
little bit further
That's what I was
out
going to say, right?
Just takes so much pressure off that combo, doesn't it?
Oh, unbelievable. And like I know as soon as even when she sets her shot, whether it's going in. So when she rushed that one at the end, I was like, oh, I don't know if this one's going in. But yeah, she gives you huge confidence from the sideline and from, on the court to know that she's just so willing to go to post all the time. Yeah.
And what about having George around? Now obviously around the group.
Entertainment plus.
Yes, for sure. I am sure. But obviously from their point of view too, I mean, that's another resource.
Yeah.
I guess that, in terms of that's her contribution this year as well too, unfortunately, is to support them and you, I guess.
Yeah, and, we knew that George was coming back in, and we've been really clear with her. Like, we've had a couple of meetings. I've drawn up a job description for her. So knowing that she can't contribute by playing out on the court, but she can contribute in so many other ways. She was fantastic on the bench on Saturday. Like, she's always really encouraging, and you can hear her screaming and cheering and all that sort of stuff. But I gave her the iPad. She's in charge of communicating the stats that come through live. We made it really clear, this is your job, this is the role that you're going to lead, and she took it on so seriously, but she did it in her own way. She's really generous with the knowledge that she shares with not just the shooters, but with the whole team. And she marches to the beat of her own drum. And so when things are playing out, she is seeing stuff that, not that you don't necessarily see, but she just like, have you noticed this? And I'm like, oh, yeah. And so she's like, what should we do with that? And I was like, you feed that back to whoever it is. So I think I'm quite open to people doing that. And I just love that she's been able to bring her own spin on things and add value to our team and still feel connected to being part of the team and having an important role. So, yeah, so that's why she's called our technical assistant.
Oh, so the job description's got a title.
It does. I made that up. Yeah.
Good.
What do we say about this crowd, I guess, that have, the Steel faithful that have hung in for a wee while now? They're a crowd that they're used to success. Mm-hmm. They haven't had it for a while, but they were huge, weren't they? In the I guess in the wrap up of that game. Oh,
absolutely. When things go quiet, that it's not good. And going into that fourth quarter, they just came to play. Like they, I think Kerry Wills actually put a post up on her social media saying that the real MVP of that game should have been the home crowd. Absolutely. And I think last night, even on Sky, the commentators mentioned it about how amazing they were. Like, I know how amazing they are, and they just have stood behind us the whole way. We have, there are people who walk around the stadium in the Velodrome every day, and we see the same ladies, and they're like, is this going to be our week? And I'm like, yes, and they believe it, and I believe it. And then, last week they were like, I think this is our week, and I was like, I think you could be right. So it was a massive thing for our team, but it was more massive for our community and our fans. And we'd talked about winning, and I said, look, guys, after we win, don't go over the top. This is not the World Cup. This is not even the ANZ Cup. This is just a win. If we win, just be cool. That didn't really happen. And everyone was really excited. But I think, the thing that got me actually quite emotional after the game, I had a wee couple of tears rolling down my cheeks, is when we turned around and saw the crowd and acknowledged them. And you could just see the pride just oozing out of all of them. They were genuinely so happy for us. I was happy that we were able to do that for them, but they probably, I think they do realise, but we wouldn't have been able to do that on any other court in New Zealand if we didn't have those people behind us. So absolutely just love the netball love that they give us. And, yeah, I was just stoked for everyone in that who was a part of that.
Mm.
It was deafening. You were uber calm, though. Was this you just trying to play it cool, or were you, even in those moments, actually, was that something you're conscious of, or?
I try and slow things down so that I can really focus on, like, my job is obviously to see what could I say here, how can I interject, or what's actually going on. I'm not, sometimes I'm like, a duck on water. It looks calm on the outside, my little legs are going underneath. But I actually I couldn't sit down. I had to stand up going into the fourth quarter because I felt like I needed to give them a bit of my energy, and I had to scream, not that they could hear me. So, yeah, sometimes I might look calm, but on the inside I'm really, going for goal. But I did feel calm going into overtime. I felt like they were really clear with what they needed to do. And then that first bit of overtime, I was just like, yes, we have actually got this. I just knew it. They did their jobs and they looked in control. They looked calm as well. So I think if I can look calm, then they'll look calm out on the court. There's no point saying, be calm, and then you look a little bit mad on the sideline. But, yeah, it just played out that way.
You mentioned some of that soul-searching you've done. Who are those people that you go to? Who are the important people to you?
Yeah, not my family. I go to my family for family time, which is nice, and my kids are really great at gauging what I need, and they've learnt this over the years, so they know that I'm going to come home and I'm going to sit up and I'm going to watch the game. So they're like, do you want a cup of tea, Mum? Yep, okay, see you in the morning. They know that when we lose that they just probably need to give me a little bit of space. My mum and dad's really funny. He talks about the team like I'm not there. Oh, those Steel girls did really well this weekend, didn't they? Yes, Dad. Yes, I don't often go to my family, but no, the key people for me are obviously my management team, like hugely. I've got so much respect for them. Like Dana's got so much knowledge, and she just goes about doing her job just, I don't see half the stuff that she does. Jo Morrison is another one. Everyone in my management team, love to check in on them. Outside of my management team, our coach lead, Tania Karodia, so she works for Netball New Zealand, she's like one of those aunties that you really respect, and when she speaks you stop and you listen, but she always checks in. She's always has this most uncanny timing of checking in when you need her to check in on you the most. So she would check in on me pretty much post every game last season, so she's somebody that I'd always check in on. Knowles, yeah, so she, again, flick me a text or give me a ring. How you doing, buddy? What do you need? These are the things I'm saying. Are you okay, just as a person? So check in on her. And then Bevo, who used to be here, absolutely amazing. He would just send me an email. How you going? What do you need? Do you want to catch up for a chat? When he was here, we'd go have a coffee, which was great. And the other person that I'm really fortunate to have, and have realised that more lately since his Sky interview, is Don Tricker. So he's actually one of my coach mentors and has been for, we're going into our third year. So I have like 3 or 4 touch points during the season that I connect in with him, and then just any other time that I need. And like obviously he's with the Padres over in San Diego, and I just flick him an email. Hey mate, can we ever catch up? Yes. How does this time suit? Like always very generous with his time. So, and he just keeps things really simple for me as well, and just helps me keep grounded and then able to refocus. So, yeah. And the other people, probably people like Jason McKenzie and also Rod, who is the Silver Fern psychologist. Yep. So check in on him as well. He checks in. How you going? good. Okay, that's great. You know, it's just as simple as that. And sometimes I was like, yeah, actually, it's not good. He's like, well, what do you need? Yeah. And so I think have got myself to a point now that I can recognise when I'm probably not in a good space and try and front foot it. Because if I can't sort my own crap out, then there's no way I'm going to be able to lead anyone else. So that's probably been my biggest learning in the last couple of years. If I'm okay, then I can clear my head and then I can do my job better.
Awesome. Takes a village, as they say, right?
It sure does.
Now, this is going to make you incredibly uncomfortable, but I'm going to ask this question anyway. Now, your answer can't be it's about the Magic on the weekend or about the rest of the Steel season.
Yeah.
But from a coaching point of view, what's still to be achieved? What's next?
Oh, plenty of things still to be achieved. And you said I couldn't say that. I think, look, for me, if I go...
I'm lining up the Silver Ferns question.
Okay, yeah, I know that's what you're aiming at. But if I'm thinking about short-term goals for me, it is about getting this team to perform more consistently week in and week out. I still believe that we've got the right people to get us through to the playoffs. If we get through to the playoffs, that would be massive for me. So I still think we've got the right people to do that. Mathematically, we can still do it, obviously. So that's probably the short-term goals. Long term, it's always going to be trying to be the coach of the Silver Ferns. Why else would I be here? Otherwise, I'm just filling in time, really. So that's something that I still want to aim towards. Sometimes I think I'm ready, and then other times I think, nah, I've still got so much to learn. So I think that's probably the thing about me. Like, I still want to keep growing how I coach and how I learn and how I adapt to different people in different scenarios and things like that. So I'm probably more open now as a coach to being challenged, to have different opportunities, to listening, to learning, to all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, ultimately that's my main goal, is to get there one day. Yeah.
Nice. There's a common theme, I guess, if we look at the Highlanders, the Stags, the Steel, the Sharks. You know, there's salary caps. There's this level playing field. From a Steel point of view, what do you do, I guess, to create a point of difference where players want to come in? Obviously, we want to give our own players the best pathway possible, but in a professional environment, we need outside talent as well. How do you get to a point where Steel is the team that people want to play for?
Yeah, I think, when it comes to salary and things like that, all ANZ teams are in the same boat. You get the same amount of money to contract whoever. I think our point of difference is the environment that we create down here. When you can be losing 15 games in a row and you still have people knocking on your door because they're interested in joining your team, something must be going right. So I think that probably speaks volumes. So I think what we do down here, we're very professional in what we do. We've got good people around us in our management group. We're very focused on what we want to achieve. So it's about trying to draw people in. Some players who haven't been here before think that we're so isolated that is really hard to get to and you're going to freeze to death in the middle of the night. Then when they come down, they realise what other people who are here or who come back to have realised. And I think that's probably speaks volumes. And when I look at this team, when I look at last year's team, and I gave Courtney Elliott a ring. So, when she left here because I didn't give her a contract. So when I rung her last year, she could have quite easily just went decline. She picked the phone up and said, what is it that you need? And I said, how about you come for another stint in Invercargill? Yes, please. So I think for me, it's when I am able to ring players who I haven't given contracts in the past, then I re-offer them something and they want to come back. I think, okay, we must be doing something okay down here. And that was the same thing this year with Tanisha, with Abby, with Jen. Yeah, with those types of players, they've come back into the environment because they know the expectations, they know it's hard, but they still want to come be a part of it.
Obviously, you've got a unique situation with, obviously, Steel's based in Invercargill, but you've got split over two cities effectively. How does that work, I suppose, in a week-to-week sort of sense?
That works because we've got a great team behind us who make it work. It isn't ideal. Like, if you really want to break it down, having people in one spot would be much easier. We make it work because we know that's what's best for the players. So they're usually split into Dunedin because they're up there studying, and that's where their lives are. The twins are both up there because that's where they've settled now. They did their study there, and we support them to be there. They're used to the travelling, like they've done that for 6 or 7 years. So they are quite happy to get in the car, travel 2 hours down here, train, stay overnight, travel back the next day. It is hard for new players who come in who think it sounds quite easy. Once they get halfway into the season, they're like, this is actually really hard. If I stay here, I'm not doing that again. I'm just going to base myself in Invercargill. So it isn't by any means easy. It's just something that we make work because we know that's what's best for the players around us.
Nice work, mate. Hey, congratulations on the weekend. It was some moment. I think it was some moment.
Definitely.
You know, and really stoked for you and the crew, you know, and really stoked to have been able to spend some time with you and how open you've been as well too. So thank you for that and good luck for Magic on the weekend.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
No, it's been a pleasure. Winning is a habit. Let's hope. Yeah. Fingers crossed, everyone.
Steel coach Reinga Bloxham, and boy, that was a very honest insight into not just Saturday night's incredible victory, but the last couple of seasons as well. And you can tell that she has got herself very comfortable and won her own self and her own skin, but from a coaching point of view, which from a Steel perspective is an awesome sign, and from a New Zealand netball perspective.
Yes, some great people that have come out of Eastern Southland over the years, isn't there?
Yeah,
they didn't all come out of Gore High. Some of them come out of Menzies College as well. And I think that's probably one of our best interviews we've had on this podcast, and it had nothing to do with the three blokes on this side of the desk.
Yeah, she was great. That was great insight. And I think you actually mentioned it too, that she'll come out of this better off as a coach, I would have thought.
Yeah, no question about that. So we wish them well, obviously, to try and back it up, and that's what they're focused on now, obviously, the Steel, to get the Waikato Bay of Plenty Magic in Rotorua on Saturday. So that'll be one to look for. Nate, you've got an event coming up from an active Southland point of view?
Yep, one more public service announcement. So we've got a really important workshop, Disability 101, coming up on May the 28th, 7 p.m. at ILT Stadium Southland. Anybody who's involved in Sportland, whether it be with an RSO or a club, just an opportunity to learn a bit more about how to make sport and clubs and venues more accessible to the community. So a really good one to sign up for.
Good stuff. Keep an eye on the Southland Tribune for more great sporting contact. What do you got in the works, Sav? Anything that you can break here?
Another bumper edition coming up this week on Sunday. Oh, there'll be more club rugby and Sharks and Steel and everything.
Good stuff.
Think that far ahead.
I understand. No problem. Sorry, I put you on the spot a little bit there right at the end of...
Lots of stuff.
Lots of stuff. That's the answer.
Sign up.
Yeah. Have a good week, and we'll see you next week, eh?
Cool.